This episode is sponsored by the Bridge to Recovery, a nonprofit program on 115 acres near Bowling Green, Kentucky, a tranquil place where they've been changing lives for over 40 years. Their people improve their quality of life by acknowledging past emotional wounds and healing from all forms of trauma. The CEO, Paul Hamlin, has been a friend of mine for 20 years. Call him directly at 858-945-7848. That's 858-945-7848. Or you can learn more about the Bridge to Recovery by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting thebridgetorecovery.com. Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
I'm Terry Shapiro, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
I just got home from a short little summer vacation. Took a drive up to Greenville, South Carolina with my son. Spent a few days with an old friend and my newest Patreon patron, Jen Conway. And, you know, I got a chance to think about where this podcast is going at this point. I left right after I recorded this episode that you're about to hear with my friend Terry Shapiro. And the last day we were there, we were walking around downtown Greenville trying to avoid an afternoon rainstorm. And we went into this cool bookstore that's in an old municipal building downtown, and painted on the window is a Pat Conroy quote. If you're not familiar, Pat Conroy is a South Carolina writer he died a couple years ago, but he wrote a bunch of great novels, probably the most recognizable of which is The Prince of Tides, which was made into a movie with Nick Nolte and Barbra Streisand. But on the window of this bookstore, read a Pat Conroy quote that said, "The most powerful words in the English language. Tell me a story." And, you know, it just kind of struck me because I love stories. I love hearing people's stories. And, you know, the concept for this episode originated with a story that someone shared with me. It was a little observational essay that a guy wrote about Terry called The Diamond Polisher. And I read that at the beginning of this episode. But, you know, I just love hearing people's stories. You know, I love getting to know people, and, you know, Terry's just a very likable guy. He's someone who I knew of for a long time, and a lot of people assumed I knew him for a long time before we actually met, and we've become relatively close friends over the last few years. He's someone I really trust. He's someone I go to, you know, for support, especially as a dad, but also as a colleague. And I think you're going to enjoy hearing his story. I sure did.
Just the product.
How you doing?
Bad seeds.
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for
Oh, this is the
taking time to
coolest.
do this. Yeah, we got Caesar here. You can probably hear him in the background chewing on his rawhide bone.
I'm all mellowed out watching him.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things I really wanted to do is have you on the show here and read the story that your friend shared with me a couple years ago. That's called The Diamond Polisher.
Oh, wow.
It's from January of 2011. Grady Wade, who is a longtime friend of yours, who I had the privilege to meet a couple years ago, and a couple days after that happened, he emailed me this story. And, it's this story, what it conveys is really one of the reasons why I love you and I respect you, because this is the way you think, and it's also the way that I think. So without getting any further into it, I'll just go ahead and read it. So it's called The Diamond Polisher. A group of 4 couples sat at a round table for 8 in the Hellwig Fellowship Hall of the Second Presbyterian Church in downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee, having dinner together prior to attending a musical at the Chattanooga Theater Center. The church's convenient parking and close proximity to the theater, just a scant 10 minutes away from the other side of the river, and a simple, hearty meal lovingly prepared by the faithful women of the church made for a stress-free prelude to the entertaining evening which was to follow. Grady's, he's a little verbose, isn't he? Typically, in addition to its own church members, these dinner theater events would draw a diverse crowd made up of other local Presbyterian churches who had seen the open invitation in their church's newsletter, as well as friends and family members from other faiths and those not connected to any faith community at all. Although it was an opportunity for a variety of persons to see the church and meet some of its members in a safe environment, perhaps for the first time, there was no hidden agenda, no role taking, and no plan for evangelizing or proselytizing. Soft, non-invasive piano background music was frequently provided by a supportive professional musician who eagerly came to sing for his supper and attend the performance with the rest of the group. Such was the case that night. Grace had been offered, the good food was efficiently served on time, and there was a sense of congeniality in the air. But sitting at table with strangers is never completely devoid of some awkwardness. The fear that the ice might not get broken is usually felt by all, and all are relieved when someone finally does it for the group. Save for the friend who had invited them, none at the table had ever met Terry Shapiro and his beautiful wife Claudia, and none of them knew that, less than a year prior, Terry had been recruited by CADIS, the Council for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, to become its executive director. Maybe they still don't know. To break the ice, someone said to Terry, "And what business are you in?" Dead serious and without hesitation, Terry said, "I'm in the diamond polishing business." He went on to tell how some of the diamonds are cracked, some have defects and are dirty beyond recognition as diamonds, and how all appear to be of little or no value. But then he described in detail the process of examination, evaluation, cleaning, chipping, and purifying germane to his craft, and how they become beautiful jewels of great worth. His passion for the work of diamond polishing was riveting. Of course, he was talking about the marvelous restoration of a person from a hopeless state of mind and body to a life of meaning and usefulness brought about by abstinence from alcohol and drugs and the conversion to a new way of living and thinking. He never told the group any different. And is there any difference?
Boy, that it almost brings a tear to my eye to hear you read that way. And it was written, I think, in 2011, but it actually took place in 2000.
Wow.
Maybe 2001 is when that event took place. And, you asked me a while ago, we were talking about how I wound up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, of all places, when I had been living in Bogota, Colombia, South America. To go from Bogota, Colombia to Chattanooga, Tennessee is kind of a little bit of a stretch of the imagination for anybody.
Yes.
But and sitting in a church basement at a dinner before a Christmas concert was definitely not the place I thought I would find myself that evening. And I mean, that's it's a beautiful story. It's really well written, but it's kind of the way I live my life.
Yeah. Me too, and, one of the things that comes across with that idea of, someone who suffers from an addiction or from alcoholism, that they're really underneath all that damage or grime. I mean, it's a diamond. It's a perfect stone. And, one of the things, I mean, both of us have been sober for a pretty long time. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is, to see myself less and less, to look upon myself less and less as flawed and more of as someone who started out perfect and, got that grime and the cracks and the dirt and, was just a diamond that needed to be polished.
Yeah. That's the thing. And if we want to stick with the diamond metaphor for a while, and the pressure that it takes for a diamond to become a diamond and then, get polished up back to that form. And a lot of times that's what it takes is pressure and stress and to get that diamond back to its true perfection that you're talking about. We're all born that way, and things that happen in life shape us and mold us and scratch us and get us dusty. And it's all about, no matter what it is, whether it's a addiction or any other kind of issue, we're all deserving of being polished and shining in our true form so that we can then go out and become diamond polishers for others,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But you're right. It can be anything. I mean, for some people, it might be mental health or it might be some sort of family problems. I mean, some people have anger problems, but what I've learned is that these imperfections that we have or the wounds that we have, if we allow them to, will eventually, they can become our strengths. They can
Absolutely
kind of become our superpowers if we want them to.
And we have old Caesar over here. He hears you talking about that, and here's a dog that came out of a rescue that wouldn't have had anything near the life that he had today if you weren't the person that you are.
Yeah.
He right on cue. He hears what you're talking about and starts chiming in like you're right about that one, Dad.
You know what's actually happening with him right now?
No idea.
His rawhide bone is stuck in the blanket, and
he can't get it out. Yeah.
So I'm gonna grab that.
He wants Dad to save him one more time and pull that rawhide out. The whole piece written by Grady, and he loves writing stuff like that, and he's the kind of guy that would invite someone like me to a dinner like that, knowing that my background is Jewish, that my wife, who he knew, didn't like going to social events like that. She's shy, and to go to it's always the same thing when she and I get together when we want to go out or invited to something like that. She's like, "Who are we going? Who am I going to know there?
Right.
Wait, why are we tell me why we're going there."
Right.
Why would you say yes to something like that? And for me, it's because Grady asked us to go, and with Grady, it's always been an adventure from the time he asked me to pick one other friend of mine that I knew but not very well that I wanted to get to know better, and the other people coming on the trip were being allowed to do the same thing, and we drove in this decked out van, regular passenger van, from Chattanooga to South Bend, Indiana, to watch University of Tennessee Notre Dame football game, and wind up getting there completely 100% trusting that he had everything worked out, all the details where we were going to stay, and nothing was worked out. But the trust that we put in Grady, mind you that Grady is a 79-year-old man who was All-American punter for Vanderbilt University football team and drafted by the Bears to play for them. And he didn't do that. He had a different career, but, he's a diamond polisher.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah.
Learn so much from him, and I continue to learn so much from him.
You know what I got hung up on there is when you were talking about your wife, Claudia, about how she's on the shy side and doesn't like to be super social. And it's interesting as we enter into our significant relationships like this, because we choose people who kind of compensate for us, because you're like the most gregarious person. No, I mean, I suppose I've met more gregarious people, but I can't think of anyone who, and you're also very, very well liked, and to the degree that, I've had this conversation with a number of people over the last couple of years, people who are in a position to kind of orchestrate these marketing dinners. And, I always say to them, you need to get Shapiro, because if you get Shapiro, other people will come because they'll want to spend time with him. And that's really the truth. I mean, people love you.
Well, that's humbling.
It's true. It's true. And
so that's now I understand why I get all those free dinners. I just have to be nice and keep.
All you have to do is be you, be authentic, right?
You're right though about Claudia and the people that you surround yourself with. I've always felt that the best matches in life, in relationships, are you marry your underbelly, or you're the person that fills in your gaps and you fill in theirs. And it's not anything you ever have to sit down and speak about and say, what are the things that you don't like or your weaknesses? If I have the things to fill those in, I'll do it, and vice versa. I think it just is a natural dance in relationships.
It naturally happens, whether we
when it
want
works
it to or not. Yeah,
when it works. I mean, we've been married almost 32 years. August will be 32 years.
Wow.
And I can count on probably half a hand the number of fights that we've had. And maybe in almost 32 years, there was one night that we went to bed without saying, I love you and good night.
Wow.
What a blessing.
That is. Yeah. And, I mean, you really have a family. I mean, it's, I've had the pleasure of being able to spend time with you and your wife and kids. And I think I've told you that, I mean, I really admire the type of rapport that you have with your kids. I do. It just, because, it's, I suppose really because it's so different than what my childhood was like. That's probably part of it. And not that, there wasn't a lot of love between my mom and dad and us, but, I mean, you're really accepting and supportive, and, your kids are themselves with you. They really are. I mean, from what I've seen.
I think I appreciate that you say that. And I think that's, me being a diamond that was polished myself. And, that's the fruits of all that I had the opportunity of people taking me under their wing and teaching me and showing me a different way helps break the cycle of, one's own growing up. And, look, there's no parents university, or there's no parents 101 in high school. You don't ever learn how to be a parent. We all do the best we can. And I know my parents did the best they can with me and made their mistakes. And I, catch myself when I'm repeating those mistakes with my kids. But having the connection that you and I know we have in the lives that we live today with, someone of the same gender that help build those strong relationships and connection. I mean, the key word is connection there, where you can talk about anything, everything, innermost secrets and share things. It's the magic of it all. It's the magic of this program and and life that we have today.
Yeah.
And I think my kids, and look, I mean, I've been around your son, and I see the love that you have for him and how much time you spend with him, and your time with him is all built around him, and the love that you have for him. I mean, we're just, it's a blessing to see that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we're never going to be that perfect diamond that gets laid into a setting and put on someone's finger, but you know, we keep getting polished and cleaned off and dusted off, and yeah, we're fortunate.
Yeah. You know, one of the I mean, we've done some fun stuff together. I have some really good memories with you.
Yeah, you driving 100 miles an hour in the express lane to get us to Miami for the Cubs Marlins game,
right.
Focused on the road in this crazy place we live in.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. It makes me think of Jacob, your son Jacob, when, you know, Terry's the guy at the baseball game who will start the chant. Let's go Cubbies. And I just remember the times you would do that. And, you know, granted, we're at Marlins Park, you know, which, you know, they're usually more Cubs fans than Marlins fans. But anyway, so Terry starts, let's go Cubby. And you just see Jacob like, please stop, please. Like he doesn't want to have that attention drawn to him. It's funny to watch, you know. He's a good kid too.
Yeah.
You know, you have great kids.
It's a blessing. They're used to that. I mean, it's always that way, whether it's Wrigley Field or somebody else's field. If our Cubbies are playing, that's what it's going to be. And, you know, Jacob being the age he is, will bury his head in his hands, whether it's because I'm rooting on the Cubbies or telling a fan, you know, 2 rows in front of us to sit down and, you know, get their popcorn later that I'm trying to see.
Yeah, it's funny. But, so talk about what you do for a living. Tell the people about your career a little bit.
I think I have, one of the best careers in the world and have. I mean, I've been kind of Forrest Gump-like in my life and my career, which has been really neat. But, you know, right now working for the company that I work for, Origins Behavioral Healthcare, and which is, you know, the Hanley Center here in West Palm Beach, and the Origins facility in South Padre Island, Texas, and Hannah's house. You know, they pretty much have given me the position, the ability to go out and build relationships and spread the word about the good work we're doing and match up the needs that people have, whether they're companies, corporations that have employees that need help, or therapists or psychiatrists, or, you know, group counseling practices that have people that need help. You know, just trying to be available and be that guy that people can call as a resource. And what's cool about that is, you know, when people trust you, they're going to call, whether it's to send somebody to your program and your facility or not, or maybe asking for, you know, I told you earlier, somebody called me from Tennessee trying to find a place for somebody in the Keys today, or yesterday I had somebody calling me to help find them a place in Detroit, Michigan. I mean, it's a kind of a cool thing to be able to do that, and then hear the story afterwards about how great that worked out, that you helped my brother get to that place. He's doing great today, or you know, we've been going to the family program at that facility, and it's really neat. So, I mean, I spend most of my time connecting with those people that have people that they work with, or employees that they have that eventually may need the kind of help that we offer at Origins.
Well, you know, it's interesting. One of the little dots that I connected over the years after, you know, getting help myself and then working in the industry and having some jobs with some similar responsibilities as yours. You know, when it comes to like really good addiction treatment, if you're a person who ends up in that facility, you might not know it and you might never know who it is, but there's always an employee somewhere who connected the dots between your therapist and that facility or your brother-in-law. I mean, there's some Terry Shapiro or Tom Gentry behind the scenes for almost everybody who gets good treatment, right?
Yeah, it's so neat, isn't it?
It is.
It really is neat. And I'm fortunate that we live in Florida, which is closest to the Hanley Center, and I get to go on campus and sometimes meet those people and connect the dots and introduce myself. And they may have heard my name from their family members that were getting things set up.
You're Terry Shapiro.
Yeah, you're the guy.
You're the guy.
And, most of the time it's a big thank you and can I give you a hug? And
sometimes it's not.
Yeah. And, well, every now and then it's, they're not quite ready to say thank you, but you've heard it over and over again. People circle back and they say, they circle back.
Yeah.
They realize that the help they got is probably the greatest thing that's ever happened in their life and can be.
Well,
it's a real gift.
And the fact that it makes me feel good that you are representing Hanley, because I mean, that place has been so important to me in my life, it just, my life changed there. I found God there, my sister got sober there. Her life was saved there. Then a year later I went there and man, it just, and then eventually worked there. And I mean, I have so many stories about significant life events with my son, with, just that are related to that place. And it's so many great memories. I love the place.
It's hard to believe it's been around since 1986 already.
It is.
Isn't it? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I go in this one room back there where they have pictures in archives from years ago and photo albums. And, me being new, only 5 years down here, and knowing people that come out to me and say, I worked at Hanley back in whatever year, 1992. Right. And I go in these old photo albums and I see pictures of them and I pull them out and I say, hey, look what I have for you.
Yeah. And it's funny because, when you look at that roster of people who worked at that place and then moved on to do other things, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, some of the jobs that, and what some of the people have gone on to do with their careers. It's really
all over the country.
It's really cool.
All over the country. I mean, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's really what it should be.
Spreading the word and learning to do things the right way and then taking it somewhere else and replicating it with other people.
Yeah, it's happened quite a bit, and then that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
So it's a great, great job. I'm blessed to get up every day and do it. I spring out of bed like a tiger. How many people can say that they wake up in the morning and spring out of bed like a tiger, not just to run to the bathroom, but because I know I've got a great day of work ahead of me, and no 2 days are the same. Mm-hmm. Today was pretty cool and had a lot of appointments back to back. That one was running late and then the next one ran late, and so I was putting the pedal to the metal a little bit too hard, and by the grace of God, I didn't get pulled over.
Yeah. Well, that springing out of bed thing, I mean, as it relates to the subject matter of this podcast, the authenticity thing, I feel like if we're really doing what we're supposed to be doing, then we do spring out of bed in the morning.
No, I couldn't.
But if we're not, then that's when we don't want to roll over and we end up hitting snooze a whole bunch of times, and it becomes more drudgery.
Those constant reminders, I think, for people that don't have that, but that reminder of, I may not always be able to choose the work that I do every day, but I can certainly choose the attitude that I bring to that work every day. Whether it's slinging fish in the Pike Street Market and smelling like fish at the end of the day, or doing what I do. Mm-hmm. We can wake up and choose a positive attitude and get to it and get at it and say, this is going to be the best day, way better than yesterday. I've got an opportunity to make this, the best day of my life.
Yeah.
And do that. Go out and make it happen. Claudia asked me, on the weekend, why can't you just stay in bed and rest a little bit longer? And because to me, it's a waste of time to stay in bed and just lay there and veg and watch TV. I mean, I know when my battery needs to be recharged, I'll usually feel it, know that I'm getting run down physically and start getting a little bit of a sore throat. So I'll catch myself and, maybe I'll sleep another 40 minutes or something or be forced to stay in bed.
Yeah. So what was your childhood like?
Well, I was born a poor Jewish child on the wrong side of the tracks in Skokie, Illinois.
Wow.
Really? I mean, I was at Skokie, Illinois when I was growing up, was a town that was the world's most populated Jewish village in the United States. And most of it was, most of the people grew up in houses. We lived in a side of town that were apartment buildings. But we had a really cool neighborhood growing up, and we were out from, especially this time of year, summertime, up in the morning, grab something to eat, out the door to the park to play pickup baseball games, call your field. Right field was a short porch for us lefties, and if we hit an automatic home run in the street, we had to pray that it didn't hit a car window. If it did, we'd all run home for a couple hours and then gather back at the field and hope that nobody came there. Mm-hmm. My father, rest in peace, he died young. He died at 57. Workaholic, gambler, loved the racetrack, loved the ponies. He was there as much as he possibly thought that he could be. My mom and dad worked when I was a baby. My dad actually had the original or the only pharmacy in the Cabrini Green housing projects of Chicago. It was called Cabrini Green Pharmacy. So my mom worked for Dad's Root Beer as a secretary, and my dad had the pharmacy. So he would take me in the car as a baby down to to Cabrini in the projects, and I would be sleeping. I'd wake up in the arms of Norma, an African-American woman that worked for my dad every day. So, I grew up not knowing that there was a difference in color. Mm-hmm. My dad's store was burned down in 1968 when Dr. King was shot during the Chicago riots, and he had to reinvent himself and figure out what to do. So times were tough for many years. He worked a lot. And, I think that my childhood was pretty typical and average. You hit on, something earlier. We were talking about self-esteem and what happens to people when that self-esteem is not built at a young age and you're not confident. And I would say that I lacked a lot of confidence at a young age, had little or no self-esteem. I was one of those kids that when you all get together with your friends and you pick on each other and tease each other, I think it hit me harder. It hit me harder.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. I think, I just think I really took it more personal than everybody else. Some of the guys that you could tell that it would hit them and roll off them, and I just absorbed all of it. And I think I took all that and rolled that into hitting people as hard as I could when I played football and trying to tear up the guy that was across from me on the wrestling mat, and poured it all into sports.
Yeah.
Until that didn't work anymore, and then I tried looking for another solution. Mm. And we know what that solution is when you're a young, impressionable, 12, 13-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I think about with my childhood is that I really needed somewhere to belong, man. And, the baseball team was really where I found where I belonged,
Best sport on the planet.
Absolutely.
I think we agree on that. Today, kids not so much. They're more into lacrosse and other sports. But, and baseball is losing a lot of popularity. It's a slow game. They're trying to speed it up. But baseball has been very, very good to me. Mm-hmm. And as you know, I played a lot in high school and college and semi-professionally. And, as a result of the program, this wonderful mutual support 12-step program that we both know and love, the opportunity to get back involved in baseball, in scouting and player development in Latin America, just came true like the promises. Out of nowhere, I'm on a baseball field in Bogota, Colombia, South America, and there's this heavy-set, waddling American guy with an Atlanta Braves hat on, speaking only English, that comes over, spoke no Spanish, and asked for my help, started having a conversation. It turned out he was the local area scouting director for the Cincinnati Reds when I was in college, and he knew guys that played on my team in college, and was now currently the at that time in 1996 the director of international scouting for the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves had a very strong international scouting department and found guys like Andrew Jones and Bruce Chen and
Javi
Lopez. Yeah, I mean, great international players. Rafael Furcal.
Yeah, man, he was great.
The guy said, I need somebody here. I don't, this area is really developing baseball and I don't have anybody. Would you have any interest? And we went and we sat down and he sent me to scout school. So I worked for the Braves from 1996 to 2000 and learned a lot about baseball, all the inner workings I had no idea about, as a player. And then when the Braves lost the World Series in 2000, he was let go, and he wrote us this beautiful, heartfelt letter saying, your contract is good. If you guys want to stay with the Braves, I'm moving on to the San Diego Padres. We're building a grassroots movement with the Padres. Would you like to join us? So I left. I went with him, and I'm a loyal guy, and he's the one that brought me in. I was going to stick with him. So old Clark went to the Padres. I joined him for 2 years, and then he retired. And blessing was getting a call from Jim Henry from the Chicago Cubs and said, nobody wants to do Colombia. If you want to work in Colombia, it's all yours, kid. You got it. So I did that from 2002 to 2008, which was really, really cool. And it's nice to see now, today, a lot of guys that I scouted in the major leagues. We only have one of them on the Cubs, Jose Quintana, the pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of the guys that I was hoping we would get, the Cubs didn't have the money back then. It was a Tribune owned by the Tribune Corporation. So every time we were competing, we lost guys like the Marlins current catcher, Jorge Alfaro, the Cubs could have had. We lost him. Julio Teheran from the Braves. Yeah. The Solano brothers, one of them is currently second baseman for the Giants. Giovanni Urshela, who's playing third base for the Yankees now. All these great Colombian players that should have been Cubs, but we just didn't have the money.
Well, thank God the Cubs are all right with talent, I mean, one of the things you and I have been able to share is, both growing up in the Midwest as Cubs fans. I mean, and I think I've talked to you about this, what an adjustment it has been since the Cubs won, because, our whole lives, we were the whole lovable losers thing. I mean, and I'll never forget when they made the final out in the National League Championship Series against the Dodgers. And it was a Saturday night, and my son was here with me. He's, at that point, 10, 11 years old. And I'm sobbing uncontrollably, and he's looking at me saying, Dad, you're supposed to be happy. I'm like, but you don't understand. There was the Giants, and there was the Padres, and there was the Marlins, and oh my God, it just, like, all the times we came close and it just fell apart. And
I'm ready to cry listening to you tell the story and thinking about
the whole Steve Bartman thing. I mean, I'll never forget, there was a feeling that we would get when a play like that would happen in a ball game, and it would be up, here it comes. It was inevitable.
Yeah.
They're going to lose. They're going to blow it.
Yeah.
And they did.
In 16 they did. It was the the home run by thank God I can't remember his name anymore. Off Chapman from Cleveland.
Oh yeah. That you mentioned him earlier.
That
he was the one who hit in the home run derby for the Indians
that
tonight.
Sent it to the
Was it Santana?
No, it's boy, he's one of those guys, and I'm glad I don't remember his name.
Yeah, that guy Santana hit one earlier in Game 7, but this guy, I can see his face, but I don't think he's with the Indians anymore. He's out west somewhere. He might be with the Diamondbacks now.
Yeah, but it was that feeling, that sinking feeling.
Yes.
No.
But you know what? I didn't feel it that way that time. Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was over.
You thought
I thought it was over. Yeah. It was depressing.
To me, that time it felt like, you know what? We're too good this year. We're too good. We've done too well this year. And it's been too much of a storybook sort of season for it to end this way. It just doesn't add up. And then, I mean, you know, anybody who follows baseball knows the story. 17-minute rain delay. Players meeting with Jason Hayward, and the next thing you know, they came out. Kyle Schwarber gets a hit, and I mean,
Ben Zobrist gets that opposite field double down the line, and
Miguel Montero knocks in
another that's right.
run. Thank God, or else it would have been tied again. But yeah, no.
Can't believe I can't remember that guy's name. Well, it's good. It's probably better that I can't remember his name.
But man, I mean, since then, it's like it's just such a different feeling knowing the Cubs have a chance.
Yeah, it's instead of when are we going to win this thing finally?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big part of my life growing up. I know yours as well. Coming home from school, Cubs only day games, and watch the game on WGN after school.
Yeah.
Harry Carey and I mean, for us, it was a quick train ride into the city to watch the game, and they were so bad when I was growing up. I mean, absolutely horrible. Nobody went to the games.
Yeah.
Sneak down, really low, get seats very close to the field because nobody cared. There were nobody would kick you out of their seat because there was nobody that was going to sit in that seat.
Yeah, and the bleacher bums probably really were bleacher bums.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You remember the tirade from Lee Elia, the former manager, yelling, to the reporters about the fans booing them and saying, who are these people that even come out to the ballpark at 1:00 games? How could they don't have jobs? They don't work. Who cares who they are? They're no good.
Lee Elia.
Yeah, who can show up to a day game at Wrigley Field when they're so bad?
Boy, it's not like that anymore. Is
it? No.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been remarkable to watch. But what I associate it with is my mom and dad. The summer daytime games, we would watch them together at night games, day games, whatever, but Harry Carey. I mean, and then, you always kind of everything stops for the 7th inning stretch. You stop and pay attention to that, whether you're paying full attention to the game or not. And I still, I get teary-eyed listening to Harry Carey. I have a guy who worked for me for a while, and he was a big Yankees fan, but for my birthday one year, he got me a book about Harry Carey, and it came with a CD with a lot of his famous calls. But man, I mean, there's just...
Can I give you my favorite one? It gets,
let's hear it.
It's Harry Carey and Steve Stone, and they would have Arnie Harris, the cameraman, pan down in the crowd, and Harry sees this couple down there, and he says, "Look at that! Isn't that cute? He kisses her on the strikes, and she kisses him on the balls." Live on the air. I mean, that was a typical Harry Carey.
Yeah, that was Harry Carey, wasn't it?
He was something.
I mean, and being from Kokomo, Indiana, one of the things they always did during the games is they would announce, people would write in to wish their son or daughter happy birthday. And Happy 14th birthday to so-and-so from Kokomo, Indiana. Kokomo, spelled backwards, it's Omacock.
Yeah, he was something. He was really something.
But, I mean,
big part of my childhood.
And it just added color to my life, having Harry Carey. It just, it's such good memories around that, Yeah. So, talk about what you got going on. You have 3 kids and a great wife, right?
It's kind of you to say that.
Well, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, my kids are, they're amazing. All different in their own way. Obviously, my oldest is an interpreter here for the government. Has always been great with music and languages, and doing exactly what he wants to do every day, and loves his job day in and day out. My daughters, joined the finished college last year and at DePaul, and graduated, and while in her last year was doing the whole process to get hopefully accepted in the Peace Corps, got accepted in the Peace Corps, and
that's great.
Is off in Ecuador doing the initial 90-day, I think they call it 90 days, I forget, staging, I think is what they call it. And then they send them off to the spot in Ecuador where they're going to do their next 2 years. So she's there. And Jacob, the youngest, who's the most, like me, who tells me all the time, I'm your son, because we'll be in the car and I'll be driving somewhere and thinking about something else, and I'll miss 2 turns. And Clutty's like, wait, where are you going? And I'm like, oh, wow, I just spaced those 2 turns out and have to backtrack. And Jacob will laugh and say, yeah, I'm your son. So he's a lot like me in that way, and also his love for baseball. So sitting there with him last night watching the home run derby and being able to go with him when we're in Chicago to Cub games, and down here you and I have gone with him to Cubs Marlins games. And, that's a really cool thing. And then we went a few years ago with Jack and Jacob and my family to the Anthony Rizzo walk-off for cancer in Parkland. That was before the shooting in Parkland. Yeah. We went down there to see the amazing work he does.
And this is good, because when I describe you to people, a lot of times I tell this story, because this is the kind of guy you are and the kind of family that you have. So it was late 2016, after the Cubs had just won the World Series. Terry and I are sitting in a cigar shop, and you tell me that you're going to this walk-off for cancer. And, one of the things that had happened with me that year is, I knew the Cubs were going to be good. I got the baseball package. I watched all the baseball I could. And as the year would go by, and Jack would be with me, and he'd say, who's your favorite player? And I'd say, I don't know, probably Anthony Rizzo, because he's got heart. And so the next thing you know, what's Jack want for Christmas? He wants an Anthony Rizzo jersey. And he ended up getting 2 of them for Christmas. But, you mentioned to me that you were doing this walk and did I want to go? And we decided to take, Jack. I arranged to take Jack. And, it's the only time I've been. You've been every year, I think. But the lines before the event and after the event, people lined up to shake hands and get autographs from Anthony Rizzo. Were so long. And we waited before the walk and we didn't get to see him. And then lined up again after the walk. And we're standing around in the line for a long time. And all of a sudden we start to see people not far ahead of us, the security guards, beginning to cut off the line and tell people, nah, nobody after this. And you and Claudia went into a whole different gear and started canvassing up and down this line saying, you're an adult. This is for little kids. I'm not sending this kid home without meeting Anthony. And you two would not have it any other way than Jack would meet Anthony Rizzo. And I honestly think you got it done. I mean, it influenced where that line ended and where it didn't.
Yeah, it was a God thing. It was a God thing, and it's all a God thing. And I remember him wearing that jersey proudly, and all he could talk about was, when am I going to get to meet Anthony? When am I going to get to meet Anthony? Yeah. What a guy. I mean, what he's done for children with cancer, and for kids to have a guy like that to look up to, for a professional athlete with everything that we've got going on today in the world of professional sports. I mean, he's a throwback.
Absolutely. And really, he's not the only one on that team. I mean, and one of the things I've observed about them is what it seems like is Theo Epstein, Joe Madden, they try to get good guys. I mean, they get good guys.
Character guys.
Character guys. Ben Zobrist guys. Yeah, and it seems to have worked out.
I think you're right. I really think that's the formula. I think that's the formula in anything in life. And I think that's what we, we choose to surround ourselves with character guys.
Absolutely.
You've got Jack around. You're gonna have him around with you, and there's lots of times when you have him around adults. You don't want him around anything but character guys.
Yeah.
Examples for him to grow up and remembering, like you and I remember. We can go back pretty easily, I'm sure. Who were the character guys in our lives growing up, and what they meant to us, and who were the guys that weren't character guys in our lives, or less than character guys in our lives, and what they meant to us.
Completely different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That force is always there, and it's important as parents and as adults to be able to guide people in that direction.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that makes me really proud about Jack is that I will be at the gas station or, walking through the halls in this building where I live, and, people who I barely know, even like the clerk at the gas station who I didn't know one time, I took Jack inside with me so he could get a pack of gum or a candy bar or something. And the clerk says, "Is that your son?" I said, "Yeah, that's my son." "That's a good boy. I see a lot of kids. He's a good boy."
Yeah.
And that's, and I'll have people stop me. It happened last week at this acting school where he's going. He had a new teacher who I hadn't met before. And once she realized who I was, she went out of her way to introduce myself and tell me what a great kid I had.
That's the gift of being. That's a gift of being a parent. Is exactly that. I know it brings a tear to my eye.
Absolutely.
Look, the bottom line is we were raised. Majority of the people are raised knowing the old Jiminy Cricket song. From Pinocchio.
Yeah. You going to sing it?
Yeah. When you get in trouble and you don't know right from wrong,
give a little whistle.
Give a little whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's your and always let your conscience be your guide.
Yep.
That's the thing. I mean, we learn growing up what's right and wrong. And along the way, we have the challenges that everybody's faced with of what path are you going to take? You're going to take the right path or the wrong path. And where's that going to lead you?
Yeah.
When we know deep down what the right thing to do is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, if we're true to ourselves and we follow that conscience, then we do stay on the right path.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
So, well, man, it's been really great to talk. What's in store for you in the future? You got any big plans? I know you recently did a training. Right?
Yeah, I did a training. It was great. I had a really good time. It was to become a Love First certified interventionist training by Jeff and Deborah J, who I think are the world's best trainers for interventionists, and probably some of the best interventionists in the world as well.
Absolutely.
And I did that because I've done interventions for many years and a different model, different format, because I'm an old guy and we did it the old way, and wanted to learn their way, and they're so thorough and there's no stone left unturned with them and their model. And I mean, I don't know. What do I have? What does God have in store for me? I know that today's been a phenomenal day, and yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery, right? All we have is today, a gift from God. That's why we call it the present.
Yep.
So I live in today. I've got some vacation plans. Taking our good buddy Joe with me and Claudia down to
You're going
Colombia,
to
South America, sometime soon here. And
this summer, you guys?
Yeah. In a few weeks, we're going down and take him to the capital city of Bogota and the little colonial town Villa de Leyva.
Is that where Claudia's from?
She's from Bogota, yep.
Okay.
She's from Bogota. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some good weather. It won't be too bad of rainy season, which usually is this time of year. Pretty short trip from here. And yeah, that's about it, man. Just spend my my time when I'm not working with the family and our animals, our zoo of 2 dogs, 2 jeweled lacerdas, which are reptiles, Chinese water dragon, 4 crested geckos, a cockatoo, and 2 parrotlets. So our house is pretty much a zoo.
It is a zoo, isn't it? So I guess one last thing I would ask is if you're talking to a young man, young woman who's just like trying to figure it out in life, where they want to go, what they're supposed to do, what's the first thing you tell them?
Boy, I usually ask for what their dreams are, you know. What's your dream? And, a lot of times you'll hear, well, I really want to be a certified public accountant working with major corporations. And, you dig down a little deeper and you find out that same person that says they want to be a certified public accountant really wants to be a painter.
Right.
So get people to really go for their dreams instead of what other people's expectations are for them. And really know what your dreams are. Find your bliss.
Yeah.
Know what you're passionate about. And if you don't know, start trying things that you think might be along those lines. You never know where that's going to lead you.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned is, by, not doing it more so, and I've told a lot of guys is, okay, so maybe you don't think you'll be a professional musician, but if you get a job at Guitar Center and you're among them, you're going to be with your people and you're going to find where you're supposed to go. And, every job you ever have, it always leads to the next one. And it's not always about what you're doing. It's who you're among a lot of times.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I think, happiness is an inside job. You're never going to find anything externally that, truly makes you happy. And if it does, it's going to be short term. You're seeking that, I've always sought that inner joy, and what gives me that inner joy and that feeling of peace and contentment. And it's nothing outside of me. It's an inside job.
Yeah. Well, that's really what, I've wanted this podcast to be about is, there's a musician, one of my favorite musicians is this guy, Jeff Tweedy, who's the leader of the band Wilco.
I knew you were going to use some Wilco reference there.
But what, one of the things he talks about is that, the world would be a much better place if more people were doing what they really want to be doing. And, I a lot of times will encourage people to, like you mentioned, if they say they want to do something, start to drill down and ask them, why is it that you want to do that? And a lot of times it's some kind of external pressure that they think they want to do something, but it's really not what they want to do. Yeah. And I think that happens a lot in our society.
People don't live up to their own expectations and don't even know what they are because they're so concerned about living up to others' expectations.
Right. And then you end up being just entirely dissatisfied,
Yeah, we don't want that.
No, we don't.
Because then we wind up having to be the diamond polishers that get in there and polish those diamonds that, right. Have been covered up with dust and grime and jobs and lives and careers and things that they don't want.
Yeah.
And they wind up coming in our midst, and we're the ones that have to help them go back and uncover what find their bliss.
Well, we've both been really lucky. We had people help us, and we've been able to help other people. And man, it just, when I look at what my life has become compared to what it was before, I mean, it just amazes me. Such a miracle,
Well, I'm blessed to have you in my life and have you as a friend. And even though you, I won't repeat what you say sometimes when you call and leave me voice messages that make me laugh, but I love you, brother.
I love you too. Thanks a lot, Terry. Thanks for listening to The Path to Authenticity. If you'd like to learn more about our guest, you can find links in the show notes or visit our website at thepathtooauthenticity.com. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, if you have a suggestion for a topic, or you know someone who would make a great guest, email the show at thepathtooauthenticity@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you know someone else who would enjoy the show, or even just a particular episode, please share it with them. Every little bit helps. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider becoming one wherever it is you choose to listen. You can find the show on Patreon, where by becoming a patron, you can hear episodes before they're released publicly. You can gain access to supplemental content. There are other benefits in the various tiers. Visit patreon.com/thepathtooauthenticity. Join our Facebook community or follow the show on Instagram, both at The Path to Authenticity. We also have a YouTube channel. You can connect with us on Twitter or Pinterest. To hear the songs from this and every episode, you can find the Path to Authenticity playlist on Spotify. Obviously, there are a lot of ways you could be spending your time, so I appreciate you spending some of it here with me. I'm Tom Gentry. Thanks for listening. Be nice.
You did great, honeybee.
The Path to Authenticity is powered by Equivox. For digital marketing and web design services, visit equivox.com.